Welcome everyone to our episode 83 of our section Drops of Wisdom. In today's episode, we are going to speak about how do you construct your reality. And in spite of or despite how it sounds, this kind of mythical topic, we are going to start understanding the very basic layers of how we construct our reality, how we start assembling meaning into a coherent narrative, and how our senses help in doing that, and how we have specialized neurons and features inside of our brain if we are people that are doing the effort to think, to explore, to have curiosity, and to really take advantage of our brain and all the amazing processes that are happening within us. That's the purpose of today's reflection. That's the purpose of this discussion that we are going to have. So, how do you know that your life is real or not? There are some feature neurons that play a critical role in sensory perception. That's why it's the episode title, How Do You Construct Your Reality? Because we are going to observe how these feature neurons that process this sensory perception is distinguishing reality from fiction. How we are integrating these sensory inputs to form a coherent representation. And these neurons are specialized to detect specific attributes, for example, such as edges of something, of a table, of a book, of any kind of matter, and we detect these edges. We detect movement, we detect colors, and in all those visual stimuli, we also have the addition of our senses, of auditory senses and tactile senses. And we detect pitch, we detect volume, we detect many signals through our senses. That's why also people that are blind have a heightened ability or skill to listen more of the sounds because they are guiding themselves through the sounds. And they also have an amazing tactile heightened sense because they have this attribute that compensates the lack of the visual sense. So all of these neurons, as you can see in the image, if we just activate certain of these neurons, we create a local assembly. And we just have a partial story of the reality because we are not conscious of everything. And the best way to explain this is when someone tells you their version of what happened in an argument or in a discussion, for example, in a couple. Let's say that your brother tells you how was the argument with his wife, and he starts telling his version. But if you just stay with that, you have a partial assembly or a partial story, a partial reality that is not conscious of the whole. If you interview his wife and then you have the additional information and then you start creating a much better and a much complete and coherent narrative, and then you are gating or opening or igniting your attention level, and you're also extracting information of why your brother acted in that way. And if you start understanding even more, and if you start on asking questions to his wife about her past, about her family history, you can understand why they were fighting for something that for you, that you are out from the picture, you can understand much better this kind of argument and you can get to the root of why it happened. That's what happens in therapy. Psychologists start creating this constructed narrative through the stories of their patients. And when they interview both of them, they have much better stories. And when they dig in the past, that's much better because they create now a pre-conscious assembly, something that was not in the conscious awareness of people, and we act that way because we are not always conscious and we are not always creating our reality with the best information. And that's the inspiration of this. We can create these amazing diagrams, such as the one that is in the right side of the picture, that have access to conscious behaviors. But that will only happen if you dig deeper in whatever topic you want. If you start constructing a much better reality that has different sources, has different opinions, and you don't just set for the truth of one person that is telling you what is happening, that is the way you construct neural pathways. And reality against fiction means that the actual world exists independently of our thoughts and follows specific physical laws, distinguishing that world from possible or fictional worlds that you created by your imagination and your narratives. And sometimes, taking the same analogy, you create a reality that is not at all what is happening. For example, when your wife or your partner has a message and you start being jealous or you start showing your insecurity, thinking that is someone that wants something from her. Just in your imagination, that is happening because the reality is that it was just a simple message from a random person or even a coworker or even her boss or whatever it is, and you are constructing a different reality based on your imagination and your insecurity and your past experiences. That's what happens all the time in our lives if we don't have the whole picture and the whole information, and if we are not responsible to know what happens with our own narratives. And that is the segue, the perfect segue to the next topic, which is the power of narratives. What happens with a story or a narrative? And the best or the most famous and most influential narrative is the Bible. So there are plenty of stories within that book. And within that book, there are stories that seem like fictional, and there are stories that are being interpreted by many people, and there are stories that probably they are real. And there are stories that are influencing people into guiding them towards good, let's say. But some people take some extracts from that story and they use it to do bad things, to manipulate, to create guilt and fear, to create a lot of things. And I'm not judging anything. I'm just depicting what happens. And I'm just showing you how a simple story, well, simple, let's say it's not that simple, of course, because it is very complicated to understand what is being entangled in all of those stories and parables. And that's the power of narratives. With multiple realities, they help us explore different scenarios and broaden our understanding of choices, consequences, because there are stories inside of that book that allow you to extract them and see them in your own life. because many of those stories have happened in your life and will happen if you don't act in the proper way. So all of that process that is happening and all that expansion of different scenarios, what it's going to do is that it's going to give you much more ability to create different choices and have different consequences. And that will enhance your problem solving skills and your creativity to do something different, to learn from the story. And that's how we learn as social animals. We love stories. We love this um, display of characters. We love movies. We love understanding things through that because that process engages attention. And when we are captured by the story with attention, then we create much different neural processes and pathways that create problem solving skills because you are activating your prefrontal cortex. You are really working your mind. And that's what creates creativity. That's what gives you much more tools and skills to develop something different in your life. Now, all of this has been interpreted by many, many researchers, and there is one that pops to my mind. And pops, I use that word because the name of the researcher is Popper. And this was a famous researcher that created the theory of ontological pluralism. What is this? He says that there is a world one where there is a physical world that includes non living objects and living things. There is a world two where there is a psychological world inside of you, like the story of the message and your narrative that you created, that is someone that is trying to attract your wife. And including all those mental processes and perception, there is that world too inside of your mind, just in your mind. And there is a world three where there is a product of the human mind. And this is the social, the cultural creations, and includes both world one and world two, non physical and physical. So it's a mixture of everything. That is ontological pluralism. And that is the concept that highlights how different also disciplines view the existence of multiple realities. There is one reality for the people that believe in the Bible, in those stories, that's religion. That's one reality. There is another discipline that speaks about the universe, the creation, and all of those things. That's the science way of thinking, and that's the science ways of interpreting the world. And there are many other interpretations of how the world came into existence. And those are the different disciplines and different realities for each person. And they show that our choices impact not only our reality, but also those that are around us, emphasizing that we are interconnected, just like this image where we have intersections of world one with world two with world three. And those three worlds are intersecting. And that intersection is what happens when we take unconscious actions and we think that we are not going to affect anyone by our unconscious behaviors, and we are affecting people. For example, if you have a poor choice of your nutrition, that is going to create first in you a disruption of the homeostasis inside of your body. Then, by having problems with your health, you are going to impact the people around you. Your children are going to see your poor choices. Your wife is going to deal with your poor health. And you are going to deal with that in terms of the poor ability to focus and your poor ability to behave due to the lack of awareness in your nutrition. And I'm just talking about food. I'm just talking about your food choices and how your food choices impact other people. Because if you are healthy, if you are aware, if you are conscious, if you are intelligent, your people, it's going to be uh, impacted positively. If your choices are poor, all of those choices are going to impact people around you. That's what this theory is relevant. That's why it is so important. Now, what happens with many worlds interpretation? I believe, and now there is science that proves something about this, that we have this world, and at the same time we have a parallel world 1, parallel world 2, parallel world 3, and like that to the number n. And we don't know what is the number of worlds that exist where you are interacting. And the actions that you perform in this world, probably we don't yet know what happens, impact the reality in the world 1 of yourself, in the world 2 of yourself, in the world 3 of yourself, and probably this is the explanation also of these epigenetic mechanisms, if we relate this, because epigenetics is very linked to quantum physics. And this world interpretation is quantum physics theory that suggests that every possible outcome of a quantum event occurs in its own separate universe, leading to a vast number of parallel universes existing simultaneously and challenging our understanding of reality. Because we have a really narrow view of the reality that we perceive. And there is another big picture of reality that happens that we are not aware, but we are impacting. That's why you better behave yourself. You better be conscious. You better be aware, because many of the things that you are doing are impacting yourself in another world and in the future, of course. If you act poorly in the present moment, you will have consequences in the future, for sure. So that's why there is also a scale of time here that says that this is the past, this is the present, this is the future. Because any choice that you make in the present will create a different future. And that will be in the past and will impact many other generations. And that's what epigenetics says, that any choice that we make has a consequences, has a consequence. So the environment and your choices has a consequence in your genes, and your genes have a consequence in your multiple generations. So that's why we have to be really conscious. Now, this is the most beautiful example that I can find about how our brain and how the quantum fluctuations, that this is just energy, are bidirectional, and we create quantum fluctuations through our thoughts, through the energy that we pass on. And this is what Joe Dispenza says in many of his lectures, trainings, all of these programs that he has, how our thoughts impact the reality, because they are downloading information into neural networks, into neurons, into organelles. That here is one example just of the reticulum, that we have two of them. There are many other organelles that are going to be impacted by your thoughts, by your vibrations, by your energy in the brain. There are biomolecules that are going to be formed. There are small molecules that are going to be formed, and there are atoms. And this is the energy at the lowest level. This is the quantum fluctuations. And from quantum fluctuations that we create also, we have atoms and we construct small molecules and we construct biomolecules and we construct organelles and we construct reticulum or we construct mitochondria or we construct Golgi's apparatus and many other organelles, and we construct more specialized systems called neurons, and we construct neural networks and pathways. These are your highways, let's say, that have at the delivery of information through your brain. This is when you are conscious, when you are not thinking, when you are just conforming to the program that is being delivered by the media, the news, social networks, etc. You are just responding to what people are telling you. And when you believe those low vibration narratives, you start becoming diseased and you create a disruption in your system just because you believe some information and you didn't have the awareness and the curiosity to explore more. That's what many of the narratives use to manipulate you. And we saw that during the pandemic, and we saw that and we see that every day in the politics, and we see that in many other realms. But it's in our consciousness what we believe. It's in our choice what we do with the information. And we can explore and we can awaken curiosity, which is going to be the next episode where I'm going to interview a really, really wise person that is going to speak about curiosity. And through this consciousness and quantum information theory, this proposes that consciousness could be linked to quantum processes such as these ones in the brain that imply a deeper connection between the mind and quantum mechanics, which might help explain our experiences and perceptions. This is the deep layers that we need to understand, that every kind of thought and choice that we make, it's going to have a quantum fluctuation. It's going to create a different molecule. It's going to create a different organelle, or it's going to make this organelle work much better. And it's going to create a system or an organ that works in homeostasis and that works healthy. And you're going to create neural pathways, neural networks that are much more progressive and that give you that heightened awareness of what is happening. And then you expand your brain, and then you become and you enter this realm that is the different kind of gamma waves in your brain. And you enter this space where you create whatever you want, but you have to take action. And the action that you have to take is just being conscious. Just explore choices. Just don't conform to the reality that is being depicted to you, and to explore more, to learn more, to expand your neural pathways. That's the only way that you are going to create consciousness and quantum information in your body. And that's how you heal, and that's how you create a different kind of reality. I hope that this talk and this reflection helps you to understand that we are constantly creating our reality with the things that we choose to do, with the things that we choose to believe, with the things that we just acquiesce to do, to obey, or we are different. We create our own identity. We create our own reality. we explore, and we decide what is true for us and what is not. Thank you very much for your attention, for your consciousness and awareness. And I hope that you are intrigued and you leave some questions, you leave some comments, and you really help me to share this information because we need more people that creates healthier communities. This also represents how we can create a healthier community. Because imagine if these quantum fluctuations are individuals. If we make the analogy that I also reflected, these quantum fluctuations is the behaviors and thoughts that we have as an individual. And we are atoms, individual atoms. But by interacting with each other, we create small groups and communities that, if they are conscious, they are going to be a powerful community. Then we create biomolecules and we create a neighborhood. And then we create organelles, which is a city. And then we create something that is a country. And then we create a society that is conscious, that cooperates, that helps each other in spite of the border, in spite of the language, in spite of the race, in spite of the gender, in spite of everything. Because that's what we are supposed to do, to help each other, to contribute, to cooperate, to create communities where we are much better in terms of the health that we desire. If we stay in mediocrity and we are envy and ambitious and we are just selfish, the reality that we create is the one that we are seeing now, separated with low vibrations and all of those things. But that's a separate reality that I don't want to talk about. That's a reality that other people want to believe. The reality that I want to believe is this: order. The reality that our bodies is depicting to us every day. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will listen to each other on our next episode. Bye.